My name is Lee, and I'm a compulsive overeater, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day. I write them down. I call them into my sponsor. I don't eat anything in between no matter what, and abstinence is the most important thing in my life today. And my abstinence date is March 23rd of 2000. So I woke up this morning, and this happened a couple of days, really, really early, for a variety of reasons. And I've been trying to use this tool of just meditate and, a lot of anxiety lately. But anyway, but then I got up because there were all these things that I wanted to remember. So I've been kind of a nervous person all day, although saying the mantra does help to calm me down. What I'll share first is just a brief history. I was originally introduced to 12-step rooms through my husband. When I met him, he was 4 years sober. I started going to his meeting, not because I had a problem, but because I was a supportive girlfriend. And 4 years later, I was still a guest at the meetings. I had stopped drinking, but I came face to face with my disease when I watched my mother in action. I'd been living in California. We were back east. I realized that I had a problem, that I was an addict, and eventually realized that food was my primary addiction. From that point, it took me 3.5 years to walk into the gray sheet rooms, and it took me another year and 3/4 to get the abstinent date that I have right now. So I didn't surrender to this easily. I was a very self-reliant person, and figured out all the diets and all the exercise, and never got super heavy, was kind of a garden variety compulsive eater, binged, grazed, mostly grazed. And, weight was up and down. I could control it to some extent, but eventually it was going up, up, up. And when I finally came back to Gray Sheet, the surrender was, I was in Gray Sheet for a year and 3/4 before I got this day one. But I wasn't when I first came into Gray Sheet, I was not actually doing Gray Sheet. I was doing with exception version that I thought was close enough, and eventually got a Gray Sheet sponsor. But because I had some measure of success as far as weight loss with this with exception, I thought that the only reason that I was really doing Gray Sheet was because I needed the community, not because I needed the food plan specifically. And that thinking was what wiggled me out the rooms, 15 months, no, more than that. Anyway, several months later, and then I had a 6-week relapse where it was like the most hellish experience that I never want to go back to. I'm grateful for it in retrospect because it's still very green for me what it was like with food when I was just stuffing things in my pocket that were melting, and having a conversation with my father, like that was a slip, with my husband, turning around to cough and stuff food in my face and just hold my hand over my mouth so he wouldn't see me chewing and swallowing. And if I needed to make the cough enough that I'd run out of the room, and it was just insane. And I think most people here know that insanity. When I came back was the morning I woke up early with that quiet voice in my head that said, Gray Sheet's the only thing that ever worked for you. You have to come back to Gray Sheet. So I kicked and screamed. I knew my disease would kick and scream, but it kicked and screamed, and I got abstinent, and that was just a little over 20 years ago. And, it's like I'm thinking about, life before coronavirus and life after coronavirus right now. And, so it's like I want to just say, okay, 20 years, I've had this great life. I had a lot of adventure. I had my share of no matter what's, the big no matter what's for me, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. I always felt that abstinence was my strength during those times. And the small no matter what's are what threatened to take me out most, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, frustrated. And it's the being like stretching out a meal too long and then going to a restaurant and waiting for the food and then it coming and it having something on it that we can't have, and just, the efforts. That's the danger for me. But what I've been thinking about lately is that it feels like, we're going through it no matter what individually, and we're all going through this giant no matter what as a community, which I'm tremendously grateful, not that we all have to go through this, but that we have each other. And so it's kind of feeling like so much was put into place to prepare, I can speak for me individually, but almost collectively, to prepare us to walk through this pandemic together. And I can only really speak to the individual part of it, which is so many pieces along the way. For example, one of the beautiful things in abstinence was that I was able to get a boat and keep it in the Caribbean. And I did that for 12 winters, from 3 to 6 months a year. So I had a lot of practice in getting food together, to go out, to be at an anchorage, to not have to come back and shop for food. So I got very organized with GreySheet. I got organized with sort of the backup of frozen and canned, very well, so preparing for this, being in lockdown was fairly easy. And even no matter what, which I'm coming up with more recently, is being able to get what I need, but not what I want necessarily. And, it's okay. And I have alternatives, but it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Cause there were things that used to get sold out when I was in the islands that, and 1 year, just to make sure that didn't happen, I sent down 72 pounds of backup food, so that I could have what I wanted, and all the teas that I wanted and everything like that. And then, this sense of being guided. When I was 7 years abstinent, my father had a freak accident. He was a very vibrant 80-something-year-old guy. He fell, broke his neck, and was paralyzed from the neck down. And I was the one primarily who oversaw his care and helped him to die when he decided that's what he wanted to do. And what he did is he stopped eating and drinking and refused medicine, and and he, because he got pneumonia. It was his third pneumonia in a few months. But huge, no matter what's during that time, and very, very sad time. Kind of some of the sadness I feel now with all of these people that are dying. And even though I don't personally know anybody in that, but the whole time I felt this really strong guidance, like I was doing the right thing. And there was joy in that. So how many minutes, Linda, do I have right now?
You have 2 minutes away from 10.
Okay, good. All right. So I guess what I'm feeling like is that the resources that have developed over the years, and the tools, are in place. And, there's like the phase that I'm in right now is, it's almost like there's this grieving process. Okay, life changed, before, after. I'm actually fairly content at home. Then there's some acceptance, but right now it's kind of this adaptation and preparing for more of a long haul and endurance. And, I've learned these tools, we take it a day at a time. I'm okay for today. I've had a lot of anxiety because of financial pressures. I have, stock market crashed, we all know. I also have the house that we're trying to sell, and that's getting extended for, I don't know, forever. It's amazing that it's even going through, but it's putting a lot of financial stress. But anyway, the point is that we have a lot of tools in place, and we have, I want to say the luxury of time. Like I've had longer calls with my sponsor and my sponsees and other program people. Um, but I also have that compulsive tendency to get very busy. And I've been it's like, um, it's how do I scale back a little bit? But, I have had the luxury of time. Um, and the other thing that I've done for anxiety, we ended up getting 10 chickens um, to about a month ago that have been like a pure delight and a meditation and completely get me outside of myself. But they have grown so fast and they have needs. And it's like, so now I get this anxiety about wanting to give them a great life. And it's like,
5 minutes late.
okay, so so anyway, that's been a joy and a stress at the same time. Um, what else was I going to say? Oh, so this year leading up to happening, that about I don't know 8 months ago, something like that, I got some guidance in meditation that it was time to step up my service and get more involved on a bigger level. And the first thing that I really wanted to do was get onto the literature committee and help with writing a book that's being published, you know, hopefully by December, and living abstinent, and that's been wonderful. And then I was reluctant, but asked to apply and decided it was a great opportunity to join the board, and that has been wonderful. It's more work than I was expecting in some ways, but not really, because I was told up front. But I'm loving every minute of it. And what I really realized is that the additional service is really keeping me connected in a way that I need to be connected, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm going to probably end there, because if I start talking about something else, I'll run out of time. But anyway, I'm grateful to be absent. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that we have each other. And for today, I will not eat in between my meals and eat my meals no matter what. And thank you. And I pass.